Welcome everyone. Today I'd like to go over the 360-day prophetic calendar. It is said to be the perfect calendar clock that speaks mathematically. Italian astronomer and physicist Galileo Galilei is attributed with the quote, "Mathematics is the language in which Elohim has written the universe." Therefore, the beauty of the 360-day prophetic calendar is that it mathematically reflects Yahuah's common language to all believers. It does not compete with other biblical calendars that we live by on an annual basis. That's very important to understand. It only enhances and complements them. The 360-day prophetic calendar behaves as the perfect gentleman. It need not enter controversial arguments. It simply calculates and stimulates the mind to see the creator of the universe, see the picture he is painting mathematically through patterns, through fractals, or mirroring chiastic structures. His 360 prophetic calendar lets his bride dance with her groom in perfect step. By his rhythmic divine numbers, Yahuah is the one who brings order out of chaos, not Satan. It is Satan that sows a serpentine mess of chaos, conflict, disorder, division, and destruction. It is Yahuah that restores redemptive order and foils the wicked plans of the evil one. All creation functions on Yahuah's perfect cycles based on his mathematics. Even this fallen world knows that math is the universal language because in mathematics there is no need for a translator because math speaks to all. Mathematics truly is the language of the Creator's universe. So we are going to take a look at the introduction of the 360-day calendar. And I first became interested in this particular calendar when studying the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation. And Yahuah has led me on this journey. It's been very exciting. And I found this website called 360calendar.com, and I found it very beneficial, and I believe you will too. If this particular calendar is of interest to you, it will take you on a step-by-step process to understanding this prophetic calendar. It's done by Dean Coombs, and he shares that he's been studying various calendars for 30 years. So he has a lot to share with others. The ancient 360-day year of the Bible is shown to be accurate as our modern calendar when regulated by simple biblical cycles of 40 and 4,000 years. The 360-day calendar is also known as the 4,000-year calendar. It is commonly supposed that the ancient 360-day calendar is hopelessly inaccurate. After all, has not modern science shown the number of days in a year to be 365.2422 and not 360? However, such reasoning lacks understanding as to how all calendars work. All calendars insert leap days or leap months to nudge the normal year closer to the exact 365.2422 year. Otherwise, before long, the months on the calendar would be out of synchronization with the seasons of the year, and this was a big problem in the ancient world. For instance, in our modern calendar, a normal year has 365 days, with every fourth year having 366 days. In the modern Hebrew calendar, a normal year has 354 days, but upon every 2 or 3 years, a leap month is added with 384 days in that year. Likewise, The normal 360-day year of the prophetic calendar adds a 30-day leap month at regular intervals, with that year having 390 days. All three of these calendars are about the same in accuracy over relatively short periods of time. However, the 360 prophetic calendar soon shows itself wonderfully supreme in every way as it spans and divides time into biblical generations of 40 and 100 years and biblical ages of 4,000 and 100,000 years. Now, keep in mind they use that 100,000 years simply to test the accuracy of the calendar. So, let me read that again. However, the 360 prophetic calendar soon shows itself wonderfully supreme in every way as it spans and divides the time into biblical generations of 40 and 100 years and biblical ages of 4,000 and 100,000 years, with the biblical principle of a seventh-day rest woven throughout. Moreover, the constant use of multiples of 360 years in keeping with 360 days enforces the biblical concept that a day is as a year, and also 1,000 years is as a day. Second Peter 3:8. But beloved ones, let not this one matter be hidden from you, that with Yahuah 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as 1 day. It is well known that Adam lived 930 years, 70 years less than 1,000. It is understood that a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. And Yahuah said to Adam and Eve, and in the day that you shall eat of this fruit, you shall die. So a day, or 1,000, is what Adam lived, less 70 years, therefore fulfilling what Yahuah predicted. The other descendants from Adam to Moses lived almost 1,000 years, but not quite. Now, why should we understand the 360 prophetic calendar? Because much of Bible prophecy is based on the rhythm of the 360 prophetic calendar and Jubilee cycles, which will point us to the epic Jubilee. But in general, it helps us understand the tapestry of His Word to the very thread count. Prophetically, we see in Daniel, Revelation, and Ezekiel that the 1,260-day timeline is made up of exactly 42 months of 30 days. Also, we see in the 1,290-day timeline, that lets us know that it is made up of exactly 42 months of 30 days plus one 30-day leap month, which in turn points us to a leap year time period on the 360 prophetic calendar. Then we go on to Ezekiel. The 390 days that Ezekiel laid on his left side is one 360-day prophetic year plus one 30-day leap month. Again, it points us to a leap year time period on the 360 prophetic calendar. So it gives us some added insight because of that. And it makes sense of some of those numbers, such as the 390 days and the 1,290 days. One can easily flip back and forth between a straight 360 count by simply removing the set leap months of 30 days, which would not disturb the cyclic rhythm of the 360 prophetic calendar. So from what I've gleaned from the 360calendar.com website was that the 360 prophetic calendar can be used straightforward in certain circumstances, and in other circumstances you would want to take into account and add the 30-day leap months. Did Noah live in a perfect 360-day annual year? Or have we inferred the concept based on certain biblical texts? In Noah's account, we do see the scriptures clearly state an anchor point of 150 days in Genesis 8, verse 3. We see anchor dates of the 17th day of the second month and the 17th day of the 7th month, covering 5 months, which could equate to 5 months of 30 days. But does that mean the annual year in the days of Noah were exactly 360 days, or does it tell us that the events were tracked and recorded based on a 360 prophetic calendar? So that's just some questions to ponder, because some say yes, it was an exact 360 annual year all the way to Hezekiah's sundial, but some say no, it was not. Is it possible that the 360-day year was inferred because Noah and others tracked biblical timing and dates using the universal language of the 360 prophetic calendar? Because it was that common language, if you will, among calendars. Those that wrote his inspired word were well acquainted in using a 360 prophetic calendar alongside various annual calendars. In Genesis 7:11, we read, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second new month, the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of the heavens were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. In Genesis 8:3 and 4, "And the waters receded steadily from the earth, and at the end of the 150 days the waters diminished. And in the 7th new month, the 17th day of the new month, the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat." Should a 360-day prophetic calendar be used to live by? No, because annually we live in a 365.2422 year. But the 360 prophetic calendar does beautifully complement other calendars by being the universal common calendar language. It is used to study and record biblical prophetic timelines. We've all seen that. It has been used for date entries, especially in the book of Ezekiel, and paints intricate numerical pictures and patterns, etc. And I'm just scratching the surface. How do we determine the start of a 360-day calendar? Now, that is a million-dollar question. Some would say by the Tekufa, others by the moon, and others by a combination of the sun, moon, and stars. Well, those are fine and dandy if you are working on your annual biblical calendars to live by in a 365.2422 year. But it is different with a 360 prophetic calendar. Just because most calendars have nestled within them 360 days does not mean they are a 360 prophetic calendar. The 360 prophetic calendar start date can be its weakest link by trusting and working from the date that is provided by experts in which to begin. That is probably why Yahuah told Moses in Exodus 12, verse 1 and 2, "And Yahuah spoke to Moses and to Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, saying, This new month is the beginning of new months for you. It is the first new month of the year for you. It appears that Yahuah reestablished the start of the 360 prophetic calendar in Exodus 12, verse 1 and 2. When Yahuah tells you the start date, it is perfection. Today it is more challenging because some see the Exodus out of Egypt occurring in 1446 BC. That is probably one of the most popular dates. And others, maybe 1437 BC. But fear not. We do have multiple witnesses in Scripture, and His Holy Spirit is the one that truly leads and guides us to all truth. And if He's not ready for us to know that truth, He'll hide it from us. So please understand, I do not have all this figured out. This is a work in progress, but I do believe there is a great lack of knowledge and understanding when it comes to Jubilee cycles and the exactness of the 360 prophetic calendar. It is actually rather difficult to find solid information on this calendar. So I hope you appreciate what I've pulled together, and because if I had come across such a teaching video, it would have been of great help to me. And again, this is just an introduction. We must start somewhere, so I'm simply sharing insights that I've been led to study, and hopefully the rest of the body of believers will be able to share additional insights or possibilities. Keep in mind, as many of you already know, when working with calendars, there are numerous variables. Oh my goodness, there are numerous variables to consider. My desire is for us to simply be introduced to the 360 prophetic calendar and let the Ruach HaKodesh lead us to all truth. In Revelation 19:10b, we read, "For the witness of Yahusha is the spirit of prophecy." This is where I began. I began with the basics. I had someone comment under one of my videos how to make the 360 calendar. And I found it very interesting because at the time I was studying the book of Daniel, and he simply took the time to spell it out under a comment under one of my videos. And this is the result. You simply, and I encourage you to make one of your own, but the first month you start with Sunday and you just fill in all the numbers, and then you have 5 left over here, and on your next calendar, of course, you'd have 5 in the first row, and so forth and so on, to make all of these monthly calendars. And what you'll find is that when you reach the 8th month, it will be exactly like the first month. Let me get my pointer. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. So the 8th month would be the same as the first month. So these are the only types of monthly calendars in a 360 prophetic calendar. So you have 7 set patterns of monthly calendars that string together endless cycles of years as the patterns repeat. So this is where I began a little over a year ago. I sat down with pen and paper and started making the months of a 360-day calendar. And like I shared, this is a great exercise for adults and children alike. There is something about physically making this with pen and paper or on a computer yourself. Now, I know most probably will not do this exercise, but I do recommend it because it helps you personally connect to patterns of the 360 prophetic calendar rather than just being told about it or looking at it on a screen. Seven set years on a straight 360 calendar without leaps is what we're going to look at next. When we take those previously made 30-day months and string them together like a pearl necklace, we have 7 strands of 7 yearly calendars. These are the 7 set years that are made from that previous screen of the 7 set months. And like I said, if you were to make them yourself, when you reach the 8th month, you would see the pattern repeats. And the same thing holds true when you make the years. When we take those previously made 30-day months and string them together like a perfect necklace, we have 7 strands of set yearly calendars. So this would be the first year, and we just continuously add the 7 set months and repeat, and you end up with 7 set years. Please do not get confused thinking we are making an annual biblical calendar to live by, because we are not. The 360 prophetic calendar is a complementary mathematical common language to all other calendars. For instance, my family is on the solar covenant calendar that begins based on the vernal equinox or the spring equinox. We believe in a dawn day start. And our desire is to have a 360 prophetic calendar to use in addition to our annual biblical calendar we live by. The 360 prophetic calendar is not a calendar to live by, and I cannot emphasize that enough, because people do get confused with that. They want to mix in the 360-day prophetic calendar with the annual calendars, and then that creates a mess because they're not going to match up. So the months make the years that make up the Jubilee cycle. So we started with the months, 7 set months, then we make the 7 set years, and then we plop them into the Jubilee cycles. Okay? So just to get oriented here, the Jubilee cycle consists of 49 years, with the 50th year being the last and the first between Jubilees. So we have 7 times 7 years here. That's 49 years. And this is the first set of 7 years. This is the second set of 7 years. This is the third set of 7 years, all the way down to 7 times 7 years equals 49. Then you have these vertical columns, and this is the first year column, if you will. This is the second year column, if you will. And of course, they always repeat. So that's why when you come back to start on the next row, it's the same as the first year of that Jubilee cycle. All of this row is the same year pattern. All of this row in the second column is the same second year pattern, and so forth. So we have the 7 years, set years that we have made. And then in this last column is your sabbatical year of rest. And we simply keep on going through this cycle, and we add year after year after year after year until we reach year 49. And then the 50th year, which if we went on another screen, would appear in this position right here. It would be the 50th year of the next cycle, which of course would be on the next page, if you will. And it would also be the first of the next 49-year cycle of the Jubilee. So the Jubilee cycle is made up of the 7 constant 360-year calendars. The 7th year of each row of 7 years is a sabbatical or Sabbath year. Again, this is that last row, okay? And we'll get to this later, but in this year, the 49th year, that is when they would blow the trumpet on the Day of Atonement, announcing that the next year would be a Jubilee year. So they'd have 5 months and 20 days to get all their possessions and return to their land. And that would be a process over time. And then at the first of the following year would be the Jubilee. Now, that's how I understand it. So you can read about the Sabbath year in Leviticus 25. I'm not going to read this to you, but you can just make note and go back and read Leviticus 25, verse 1 through 7. And then you can find out more information about the sabbatical year in Deuteronomy 15:1 through 15:5. Next, let's see the connection between counting of the Omer and the counting of the Jubilee cycle. We see how the columns can also be thought of as days of the week, such as Sunday through Monday. So these columns, to kind of ground you somewhat, you can view them as like the Sunday year column, the Monday year column, the Tuesday year column, all the way so forth to the Sabbath year column. The count of both the Omer and the Jubilee cycle begin on a Sunday, or in this case, a Sunday year, and they also end on a Sunday or Sunday year. So right here we have the 49th, but on the next cycle, the Jubilee year would be on the first year of the next cycle, which would fall under the Sunday column. So the Omer count is a micro view of the macro view of the Jubilee cycle. They both consist of 49 days or years, respectively, with the 50th day or year landing on the first of the next 7-day or year cycle. You can also read more about the year of Jubilee that's recorded in Leviticus 25, verse 8 through 22. Now I'd like to talk to us about the Exodus. Was the Exodus on the first day of the first month of the first year? Was that year just any year, or was that a year of Jubilee? So we'll take a look at that. We read about the Exodus in chapter 12, verse 1. And Yahuah spoke to Moses and to Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, Egypt, saying, This new moon, or this new month, is the beginning of new months for you. It is the first new month of the year for you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, On the 10th of this new month, each one of them is to take for himself a lamb according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the beans. According to each man's need, you make your count for the lamb. Let the lamb be a perfect one, a year-old male. Take it from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same new month. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall slay it between the evenings. Now, let me just speak a word about evenings in the Bible, especially in that particular verse, because we have a misunderstanding of the evenings. In the Western world, we think of evenings as when the day is becoming night. However, in the Bible, the evenings are referred to that time of mixing between the period of time when it's nighttime, breaking into day, and when the day is breaking into night, that twilight period. And there's two of these periods. These are called the evenings. So that's why when we read, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same new month, then all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall slay it between the evenings, from when the night is breaking into dawn and when the day is turning into night. Those are the two evenings. So Yahuah had reset the start of the year for Moses by giving him the beginning of the first month. Then the 10th day was given for selecting the lamb. The 14th day was for sacrificing of the lamb. Some point out that Yahuah didn't specifically say it was the first day of the week. But, actually, I was looking back over this verse, and he actually didn't even say it was the first month. Because in this scripture right here, and this is taken from the Scriptures 2009, so it says, this new, and then it has moon in italics, so it wasn't even actually in the text. It says, this new is the beginning of new for you. It is the first new of the year for you. So even the word month has been inserted, and the italics means that it wasn't in the original text as far as I know and understand. So we do have the word beginning. It says, this new is the beginning. And with the word beginning used, we automatically connect our thoughts to the first day of creation in Genesis 1:1. And since the seventh day of the creation ends on a Sabbath, I lean toward the first day of this year not only being the beginning of the year, but the resetting of the Jubilee cycle. To me, that would be very important for Moses to know. Beginning on the first day of the week that most of us call Sunday. So you're free to disagree, but there are several other supporting factors pointing to the possibility of this being a year of Jubilee. Some will agree with me and some will disagree with me, and that's okay. We keep on studying these things out. But we do know as people were set free, we do know they left with significant possessions. And their first campsite was at Sukkot, where they were organized into their tribes. They returned to their tribal family. So dating the Exodus year is not exact either. Some use 1446 BC and others use 1437 BC, and I'm sure there's other dates that other people use. So remember, the start point is key because that sets the pattern not only for a Jubilee cycle, but for the sabbatical years. It appears that Yahuah wanted to make sure Moses got the starting point correct and did not just rely on his own vast knowledge of the various calendars. Now, I do know that once Joshua takes them over the Jordan and they conquer Jericho, that is a type and shadow of a Jubilee cycle, if you will, coming to fruition. But they had 7 years of conquering the various nations before they actually were allotted their portion of land. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Because once they crossed the Jordan, they still battled 7 years before they got their land allotments. And at that time, that's when I see the following Jubilee taking place. In Exodus 12:17, it reads, "And you shall Guard the festival of unleavened bread, for on this same day I brought your divisions out of the land of Egypt. And we know that the people departed on the 15th day. And on this particular calendar, the Passover would have fallen on a Sabbath. That means that the next day would be when they would have left the land. As the night broke into dawn and became the 15th of the month, they would exit out of Egypt. And in Exodus 12:22 we read, "And you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. And you, none of you, shall go out of the door of his house until morning." So when the night broke into the day, that began the 15th, when night dawns into day. So on this particular year, this is the enlargement of it, and I call it year 1 reset. Thus it was the first year. So if nothing else, we can all agree that it was in this first year column. On the beginning of the first month of the year for you. So this was the beginning of their months of the year. Select the lamb on the 10th, so they had to count to the 10th. Sacrifice on the 14th here, and leave on the 15th here. So the first, I would say that was the beginning. The 10th, select the lamb. 14th was Passover. And they stood ready. They had their staff in hand. They had their loins. They had their loins girded. And they were ready, and they had their sandals on. They were ready to depart the land of Egypt. When the death angel passed over the land of Egypt, they were waiting to be able to leave. They couldn't leave until the morning of the 15th. So in John 20, verse 1, we read, "And on day 1 of the week." Now we know day is not in the original text because it's in italics. So we read, "And on 1 of the week." And week is defined as 1 of the Sabbaths. So on 1 of the Sabbaths, Miriam from Magdala came early to the tomb while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So I find it interesting that this mirrors Yahushua setting us all free by his resurrection on the Sabbath, as the day was breaking into dawn of the first day of the week. So I just thought that was an interesting pattern, that it fell on a Sabbath. He was resurrected on a Sabbath, and then, you know, he set the captives free, right? When he died in our place, was buried, and arose again the 3rd day. He set the captives free. He took captivity captive with him. And it's just interesting with the story of the Exodus that, of course, they were on that Sabbath actually possibly observing Passover. And as the day was breaking into dawn, they are released, and they leave their captivity. I just thought that was interesting. Tabernacle raised up in the wilderness, charted on the 360 prophetic calendar. So we've looked at the Exodus. Now let's look at when the tabernacle was raised. We read about that in Exodus 40 verse 17, and it came to be in the first new month of the second year, on the first day of the new month, that the dwelling place was raised up. So if we enlarge that year, I grab year 2, which is the pattern for this column of years. This is the pattern. So let's plot this out. Thus, it was the second year. That's over here by the number 35. You can see that purple box. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse or not. It was the second year. So we have that pattern on the first day of the first month. Okay, so we have that. And it was in year 1 of the 7s right here, as far as I determine. And this is what I see, that it was in this row that the dwelling place was raised. So I also found it was interesting that the raising of the tabernacle occurred on a Wednesday. And we know that Yahushua HaMashiach was raised up on that cross, on the crucifixion tree, on a Wednesday. So it's interesting to know that the tabernacle was raised up in the midst of the week here on this Wednesday. On the prophetic calendar, as was Yahushua, the tent made without hands was raised up on the crucifixion tree. It is very important to understand that the days on the 360 prophetic calendar will not match date alignments on annual calendars that have inserted annual balancing days. However, Moses was well able to navigate both the annual cycle and the prophetic 360 calendar. This 360 calendar is the prophetic clock of the scriptures and end-time timelines. That is why there is not a conflict between the annual calendars we live by and the 360 prophetic calendar. The 360 prophetic calendar does not use the Tekufa. It's a set pattern, and it only varies and synchronizes with the 365.2422 days by adding the leap months, the 30-day leap months. So I hope we are remembering that as we continue. So this is huge for us to understand, because the 360 prophetic calendar complements and serves a different role from annual biblical calendars and was not designed to compete with annual calendars. There are several views among annual biblical calendars, but the 360 prophetic calendar functions differently. Why? Because the 360 prophetic calendar is not a calendar we live by in our 365.2422 solar year. It does most certainly synchronize over time with the exactness of the 365.2422 with the set leap months added. But the 30-day leap months are not added on an annual basis. So today we will progress in learning how to synchronize this calendar with dates on our Gregorian calendar. So I've plotted some possibilities as to the Exodus and the raising of the tabernacle. And this is how I see it right now. I'm not saying I have this all figured out. It is a process. But even our annual calendars need to consider the information that the 360 prophetic calendar provides, because the 360 prophetic calendar keeps us in sync with the sabbatical years and the Jubilee cycles. And it also lets us know when we're reading some scripture, like I said, especially in Ezekiel, that they may have been referring to a particular year in the Jubilee cycle, as with the possibility in Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 1 and 2. The 360-day prophetic calendar works in unison with and gives meaning to the ancient Egyptian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Hindu, Zoroastrian, Mayan, Chinese, Julian, Islamic, Gregorian, and Jewish calendars, since all of these were based upon the expert observation of the sun and moon. However, all of these calendars come short in accuracy, usability, and meaning. But the Bible fills in where these come short. The Bible fully reveals the rhyme and the reason of how the precise cycles of the years and months work. The Bible contains the special revelation necessary to know the workings of this perfect calendar clock. What about the lunar calendar used by Moses, which is still used by modern Israel today? The calendar used by Moses at the time of the Exodus out of Egypt, and this is referencing the 1446 BC, is essentially the same as that one used today in modern Israel. It was a lunisolar calendar. Nevertheless, a careful study of the chronological material from the books of Moses shows that his lunisolar calendar was synchronized with the 360-day calendar. Food for thought. Moses was very knowledgeable, no doubt, about both the lunisolar calendar and the 360-day calendar, since he was trained in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. The Egyptians used at least 3 calendars: the 360-day calendar, a lunisolar calendar, and one kept in synchronization with the stars. However, although there are many similarities between the calendars of Moses and the Egyptians, yet there are significant differences as well. For instance, the 360-day year of the Egyptians was adjusted to the actual 365-day solar year by adding 5 special days at the end of every 360-day period, 12 months of 30 days plus 5. However, it is evident from the books of Moses and later the prophetic writings that the 360-day calendar of the prophets was adjusted by adding a leap month of 30 days every 6 years, rather than the Egyptian method of 5 days at each year's end. The insertion of the 30-day leap month at regular 6-year cycles was also the method used in the ancient Zoroastrian calendar. Another distinction between Moses and the Egyptians is that Egypt had 3 seasons to their year, whereas Moses held to 4, and he references Genesis 8:22. Now, some people read that verse in Genesis 8:22 and they say Moses saw it as 2 seasons. I'll leave that up to you. So remember that the purpose of the calendar is to create symbolic patterns descriptive of the soon coming eternal reign of Yahushua HaMashiach. It is not a calendar to live by. It is used as a common language among calendars. It is used to reckon calendars to biblical numeric patterns, dating, etc. Now let's look at some actual current year calendars I put together based on a chart that I found at 360calendar.com. So, a few weeks ago, one of the ladies attending our Shabbat group unknowingly spoke a prophetic word, if you will, when she said that she would like to have a 360 prophetic calendar hung on her wall beside her annual covenant calendar. When she said that, I thought to myself, I would like that too. But I knew at that time, and that was only like 10 days ago, I knew I had not yet accomplished synchronizing the 360 prophetic calendar to the Gregorian calendar. Then, 4 days after that Sabbath, I revisited 360calendar.com website, and lo and behold, I found a chart among all that data that gave the first day of the first month of the 360 prophetic calendar that corresponded to the Gregorian calendar. And he had it listed from 1900 to 2099. So there were the start dates. So truly, that was a Moses moment for me. Now, the question would be, would the 7 set yearly calendars I had previously made actually work correctly from year to year by using the start date here? And they did. So let's take a look at the progress made thus far. Now, this was my first time to put together a current calendar, a prophetic 360 calendar, and syncing it with the Gregorian. So this was a big step for me. And so I found this chart here, and I do hope you can see my pointer, and I enlarged it here. Now this one, I wanted to backdate it. I wanted to practice, so I went back to 2021. And the start date was March 19th. And March 19th, 2021 lands on a Friday. Okay, so now we're in business, right? We have the date, and we know the day that it starts. So that was what I needed. That's what I needed to be able to make a sample 360 prophetic calendar. So this table right here lists when the first is in the pink and 7th months, that's in the dark green here. For now, just ignore the italics. That records 1 month lag times, and I'm not sure what those lag months are. I think it's used for other calculations. But so the main column we'll focus on is this pink one. So let's start again. The below table lists when the 1st and 7th month begin from the years AD 1900 to 2099 on our modern Gregorian calendar. And he has references to click to if you want to go beyond these years. So the tabling of the 7th month serves to speed up calculating dates further into the year. Moreover, Passover occurs in the 1st month, and he has 14/15th to the 21st. But the Day of Atonement occurs in the 7th month, the 10th day, as does Tabernacles, the 15th to the 22nd. At times, the Bible also makes the 7th month to be the new year, as is true in Israel today. So that's just setting the groundwork, if you will. Now, since I shared with you, I follow a dawn day start, I wasn't sure if this would synchronize with such until I've read what I just read here about the Passover. It says Passover occurred in the 1st month, 14th through 15th, because he's got a calendar converter that is really cool. It matches all the various calendars. You just put in your date and it automatically calculates it. But I noticed it was based on a 6P to 6P. But when I saw that their 6P observed Passover on the evening of the 14th going into the 15th, then I knew that our day dawn start would be okay, because we observe it on the 14th from dawn to dawn. So on their website, like I just said, I first thought the 360 calendar converter utilizing a 6p to 6p cycle would throw off the date for a dawn day start. But then I read that their Passover was split between 14 and 15th, because my concern was that it was split between 13 and 14. So this was good news for me. And if y'all see something that I'm missing, please let me know and comment in the comment section. So hallelujah. Therefore, a dawn start on the 14th, 12 hours earlier, would still be on the 14th. That's how I'm seeing it. Both 6A or 6P start would be on the 14th as Passover. So I see where this chart can be used by either. Therefore, the start dates seem to be able to work with a dawn start as well. So even if someone comes up with something differently, it's still an exercise to practice making a 360 prophetic calendar. This was my first calendar, okay, that I actually made for current cross-reference. Okay. So, March 19th, 2021, it lands on a Friday. So we go to our years and we find the calendar that starts on a Friday. And this one is it. This one starts on a Friday. These are the Sabbaths, okay? And see, this is year 5. That's the year that matches a Friday start. So that's the pattern we use. Now that we have a modern Gregorian date to match it, now we can make a calendar. So we chose the 5th year because it matches a Friday start. And that's the monthly pattern that our calendar that we are making will start with. And so this month that's in yellow here is now the first month of our calendar for 2021, for our 2021 calendar, prophetic calendar. And this is like an overlay with the Gregorian. Now, I left the 6P to 6P simply because I wanted people to know I did see that on their calendar converter. I did take that into consideration. So the 5th year calendar falls in year 5, that year 5 column of 7. And this is a smaller view of it over here below this 03 March, which is actually, we're actually looking at our first year of the 360 prophetic. But like I said, I overlaid it with the Gregorian calendar months. So to orient yourself to what day we are on the 360 prophetic calendar, you look at this smaller calendar with the little purple box, and this tells you that you're in the first month. And it's March 19th. It is on a Friday, just like the cross-reference chart said. And you simply do your 30-day months. And I put the Gregorian months and days above them. So this was the first month. And then you just go on from that point, and it works beautifully. Now, this is the year 2022. And the year 2022 on this chart equals March 14th. And that begins on a Monday. So now we've got it going. We understand we need a Monday start year, and that is the 6th year pattern, the 6th year pattern. And I have it down here in the bottom corner circled with a yellow box here, put a big 6 on it. And so our first month will follow this pattern. So I used canva.com to make these calendars, because you just have a blank slate to start with. And so there you go. We have 30 days in our first month. Of course, the following months, just follow the pattern, and it works out perfectly again. And since this is 2022, and I'm just showing you the first month of the next year, again, this smaller calendar below this March 3rd, you see that this would be the first month of that year on the 360 prophetic calendar. So that was the beginning of the second year calendar I did. And let's look at one more. Okay, so now I did a 2023 prophetic 360 calendar. And this particular calendar lands on a Thursday. So we need a Thursday start year pattern. So we go and grab our pattern. And this is the pattern. And it correlates with that 7th sabbatical year column. So 2023 is a sabbatical year. And so we make another calendar. We have the pattern. We should have 3 days here. Yep, it's on a Thursday. It's March 9th. So you start with March 9th. And you, again, beneath it, you just count to 30. Each month is only going to have the 30. It's following this same pattern over here to the left. That's what the rest of the calendar looks like, but this is just associated with the Gregorian current calendars. So, hallelujah. And again, I even made a note down here at the bottom that this is to supplement annual biblical calendars. It's to help us grasp sabbaticals and understanding that on one of these sabbaticals, a jubilee is going to come, the epic jubilee. So that part is really exciting. So the result was that last calendar I showed you, 2023, was showing as a sabbatical year from the set patterns I had made previously. Now, again, this was my first attempt at making these calendars, so keep that in mind. And so I used those previous patterns I had made over a year ago, and with a start date, that was what I was lacking, was a start date, and the 360calendar.com website had that beautiful chart. And I just also wanted to remind us about the 2024 coming second solar eclipse. So that's another significant watch event. And I just wanted to periodically bring this back into our sessions so you'll be watching for those things when they occur. This is going to occur on April 8th, 2024. So I just wanted to refresh our memory that the first one was August 21st, 2017. And the next one will be April 8th, 2024. And we also remember in 2017 was when they saw the woman clothed with the sun and the moon at her feet and crowned with 7 stars in September of 2017. So again, we're just watchmen on the wall, but I just wanted to remind everybody of that. So at the end of the 49-year cycle, on the 7th sabbatical year, the trumpet would be blown to announce the Jubilee on the Day of Atonement. Okay? And that's the 10th day of the 7th month. That would be the announcement, as I understand it. The implementation of the Jubilee following the announcement would occur on the first day of the first month of the following year. So with this first test run, using the 360 calendar start dates, the results possibly point to either a 2024 Jubilee or 2131 Jubilee. Now, personally, I find 2024 being somewhat challenging for the remaining signs of the end to occur. I really have a hard time thinking that would be actually a Jubilee. Now, others look at 2025. Personally, I had done a separate count that I'm going to show you before I discovered they had these dates that you could convert on a Gregorian calendar, and I'll show you the pattern I was looking at, which focused on a possible 2028 Jubilee. So, you know, we're learning, we're watching, we're waiting, and that's a good thing. So having access to possible start dates shared on the 360calendar.com website, I was able to put together 360 calendars. I've done one so far for 2021, 2022, and 2023. And I've started work on 2 other calendars. The dates may be spot on or possibly not on this conversion chart. I don't know, but I was, excited just to find it. Regardless, it was an exciting exercise to delve into the mathematical workings of a 360 calendar. Finding correct start dates is really challenging for all of us these days. It appears we too would need Yahuah to tell us, like he did Moses, as, start here. So as we wait for Yahushua's return, we can still appreciate that the 360 prophetic calendar is a tool that we can familiarize ourselves with, so we will understand some of the documented dates in his word. We'll understand more about sabbatical years. We'll understand more about the epic Jubilee year coming. And the beauty about the 360 prophetic calendar is that it is very forgiving in that it cycles seamlessly, continuous from year to year, and we make adjustments as we learn and grow in him and as events happen. I mean, again, it's eschatology. It's only speculative. We're doing our best to gather the dates and understand the dates and know where we're at. But there's other factors we bring into play, don't we? He gave us many, many signs to look for. So this is just one aspect. We have other things that we will cross-reference and anchor our perspective. And amazingly, most watchmen on the wall do pretty much agree between something like 2024 all the way to possibly 2032 or 2034. So even if we can agree on that 10-year time span that something significant, the possible epic jubilee may occur, that's a pretty narrow parameter considering we're looking at 6,000 years. So before these test calendars, I focused on the year 2028 as a jubilee, and I have really no reason to scratch any of that work yet, and I will continue to watch and observe. So this, I'll show you where I was at prior to coming across those start dates. And because I had my own speculative count to the last 7 years leading to the epic final jubilee, I started my count with the signing of the Abraham Accords on the White House lawn that took place September 2020. So this was based on the verse in Daniel 9:27, when he'll make an agreement with many and then break it in the midst of the week. So with that event, I reset the date on the 360 prophetic calendar to the 11th day of the 7th month of that year of 2020. So why did I pick that date? Well, first and foremost, it was occurring in the same month as the signing of that Abraham Accord. So what I'd worked with before looked like this, and and we simply continue to be watchmen and observe these potential high watch events and watch years. So this was here on the yellow calendar, the day after the Day of Atonement. This is 2020, and I started there and I started counting. Now, 7 years on a 360 prophetic calendar is 2,520 days. So I started the count there, and we have 530, 890, 1,250 days. And then here, in the midst of the week, on the 10th day of that first month, that equals 1,260 days. And that's pretty significant, because in the midst of the week also I see the Revelation 12 verse in Revelation when Satan is kicked out of heaven and he goes to make war with the woman, and the woman is taken to the wilderness where she is nourished for times and half a times, and Satan goes to war with the remnant of her seed. So the 10th of that month, because when the Antichrist arises and breaks that agreement and reveals himself and sets himself up as Elohim, people will be deceived. And people will need to make a choice. Are you going to choose the spotless lamb, or are you going to choose the wolf clothed in sheep's clothing? So on the 360-day prophetic calendar, you see this pattern. And the pattern perfectly aligns on the 10th day of the first month in the midst of the week. And of course, we're always correlating these dates to his feast, his Moedim. Those are our wedding rehearsals. So all of these factors come together. It's just not only the calendar. There's many other factors to consider. But this is the beauty of looking at the 360. You see these patterns. So anyway, I continued to count and found the midst of the week and kept on counting, adding 360 days all the way to the last month. Of course, then the month repeats, because since I started in the 7th month of this year, I had to go into this 8th year to get to the 7th month, because these years are actually split. And then the announcement of the year Jubilee would occur on the 10th of this 7th month. And so we add the last 190, and we equal 2,520 days. And then after the announcement of on the Day of Atonement, 5 days later, we have the Feast of Sukkot for 7 days, which leads to the 8th great day of new beginnings. And of course, when Yahushua returns, how all that will unfold, the wedding supper of the Lamb and all those things, of course, we'll need to wait and see how all that takes place. So in the midst of the week, it brought us to the 10th day of the first month at the 3.5-year point. And the rest of the time period, so that's 1,260 days plus 1,260 days equals 2,520 days. So simply all we needed to do was, we know that the last day will be on the Day of Atonement, the Day of Judgment, when Yahushua will judge the world. And we will be with him. And so all we had to do was count backwards 2,520 days. And of course, that's easy to do. And it would be on the 11th, the day after the Day of Atonement, to equal a perfect 2,520 days. And only the 360 prophetic calendar can match such a timeline over that many years. So this is a perfect reason of why we use the 360 prophetic calendar, and this is why it should be of interest to us. So 12 times 30-day months equals 360 days per year. Therefore, 360 times 7 equals 2,520 days in 7 years. So if we correlate this to our current years, and that's when I started the count was in 2020, on the 11th day of the 7th month of 2020. And then I matched up the years accordingly. So if this particular cycle works out, then the 2024 would be a significant Passover date for us that would be a high watch possibility. Now, I put down here 2024 alternate Jubilee only because of what we just went through with the start dates. But I don't see that as a Jubilee. I really don't. If anything, I see the 2031 being the Jubilee, with the 2030 being the sabbatical year, leading to the 2031 Jubilee. So on my previous counting chart of the 360 prophetic calendar would end up having a Jubilee on 2028. So there's several possibilities. Like I said, these dates, it's very challenging for the watchmen, but hey, we're all bringing our insights to the table, and the main thing is that we're functioning together and working together because we are one body. Sometimes I even think the struggles we have over calendars was really somewhat of a test from Yahuah to see if we were willing to come to the table, even if we have different perspectives, and glean from one another, because we are one body, and that one body has many parts, and each part has several functions, and each of his people have something to bring to the table that the other person doesn't have. So when we do come together in one accord, then amazing things will happen. So this concludes this introduction to making a 360 prophetic calendar. So I hope you glean some information from this, and you can share it with friends. You can tell me what you think under the description section below and make comments, and be sure to like the post if you liked it. And come again. I appreciate your time, and I really am excited to hear what you want to share. So be blessed, and until next time, shalom.